One tea bag, 11.6 billion plastic particles, plus 3.1 billion smaller ones in a single cup. That's from a peer-reviewed study at McGill University, published in a chemistry journal you can look up right now. And here's the part that got me. It's the expensive bags, the silky pyramid ones, the premium upgrade. I went through the lab studies and the recall notices. 7 things hiding in your tea. Number 1 is sitting in your cupboard because you paid extra for it. Tea has the cleanest reputation of anything in your kitchen. It's the thing people switch to. Quitting coffee, cutting sugar, feeling run down. You make tea. It's leaves and hot water. What could possibly be in it? That reputation is exactly the problem. Nothing gets less scrutiny than the product everyone already trusts. So here's what this video is built on. Peer-reviewed studies published in scientific journals, accredited laboratory testing commissioned by a national broadcaster, and federal recall notices. If I couldn't source it, it isn't here. And I'll flag the limitations honestly as we go, because some of this research has real caveats and you deserve to hear them. Americans drink something like 80 billion servings of tea a year. Most of it comes out of a bag. Let's find out what else is in the cup. Number 7, most tea isn't tea. At number 7, the word tea, which on a supermarket shelf means almost nothing. Real tea comes from one plant, Camellia sinensis. That single species produces black tea, green tea, white tea, oolong, and pu'er. The differences between them are processing, how long the leaves oxidize, how they're dried, how they're rolled. Chamomile is not tea. Peppermint is not tea. Rooibos, hibiscus, ginger, lemon balm. None of these come from the tea plant. They're herbal infusions. The proper term is tisane. Why does this matter beyond vocabulary? Because the health claims attached to tea in the public imagination, the antioxidant research, the studies about green tea compounds, those studies were done on Camellia sinensis. They don't transfer to a box of dried hibiscus just because both boxes say tea on the front. There's nothing wrong with herbal infusions, but when you buy a detox tea made of dandelion root thinking you're getting what the green tea studies described, you've bought a word rather than a product. Check the ingredient list. If Camellia sinensis or black tea or green tea isn't in there, you're drinking something else. Number 7 is the word doing too much work. Number 6 is what's actually in the bag. Number 6, dust and fannings. At number 6, the grade of leaf inside a standard tea bag. Processed tea gets sorted by particle size, and the industry has names for each grade. At the top, whole leaf. Below that, broken leaf. Below that, fannings. And at the bottom, dust. Fannings and dust are what's left after the better grades are separated out. They're small fragments and powder, the fine material that falls through the sorting screens. That's what fills most standard tea bags. And it's not a scandal, it's an engineering decision. Small particles have enormous surface area, so they extract fast, which is exactly what you need for a product designed to brew in 90 seconds in a mug. But fast extraction cuts both ways. Everything comes out quickly, including the tannins that make tea bitter and astringent. That's why bagged tea turns harsh if you leave it in too long, and why whole leaf tea can steep longer without going bitter. It also explains something about price that most people never connect. The tea in a standard bag is, by grade, the cheapest material the harvest produces. You're paying for the convenience of the bag, the box, and the brand, not for the leaf. Open a bag and pour it out sometime. It looks like dark powder. That's what it is. Number 6 is the grade nobody prints on the box. Number 5 is the flavor that isn't from a plant. Natural flavors. At number 5, flavored tea. Walk down the aisle and look at the variety. Peach, vanilla chai, blueberry, salted caramel, lemon ginger. Now pick one up and read the ingredient list. In a large share of these, you'll find the phrase natural flavors, and often not much actual fruit. Natural flavors is a defined regulatory term, and it's much broader than it sounds. It covers flavoring substances derived from plant or animal material, which can be extracted, distilled, or produced through processes including fermentation. A natural peach flavor doesn't have to come from a peach. The formulations are typically proprietary. A single natural flavor listing can represent a blend of many compounds, and the company isn't required to break them out. Again, this isn't dangerous. Flavoring is regulated and used across the entire food supply. But look at what the box shows you. A photograph of ripe peaches, a description of orchard fruit, and a price premium over plain black tea. You're paying fruit prices for the same base leaf plus a flavoring compound. The dried fruit pieces you can see are often present in small quantities, largely for appearance. The test is simple. If the front of the box shows fruit, check whether that fruit appears in the ingredient list and where. If it's near the end, behind natural flavors, the picture is decoration. Number 5 is the orchard on the box. Number 4 is what's on the leaves themselves. What the pesticide testing found. At number 4, pesticide residue. And here's a fact that changes how you should think about this entire category. Tea leaves are never washed. Think about that for a second. With produce, you rinse it. With tea, the leaves are picked, withered, processed, and dried, and then you pour boiling water directly over them and drink the result. Whatever was on the leaf goes into your cup. In 2014, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation commissioned accredited laboratory testing on 10 tea brands, using the same method the Canadian Food Inspection Agency uses. Half the teas tested showed pesticide residues above Canadian allowable limits. 8 of the 10 contained multiple different pesticides. One brand showed residues of 22 different chemicals in a single product. Only one of the 10 came back with no residues at all. Now the caveats, and they're substantial. That testing is over a decade old. It measured against Canadian limits, and American limits differ. In at least one case, a residue flagged in that reporting was far below the corresponding United States maximum. Fact checkers have pushed back on how those results were later circulated online, and that pushback is fair. So I'm not telling you those brands are unsafe today. I'm telling you what an accredited lab found when someone bothered to look in a product nobody rinses. And the issue hasn't disappeared. In May 2024, a United States tea company voluntarily recalled roughly 900,000 bags of an organic herbal product after discovering pesticide residues at unacceptable levels. Organic, recalled by the company itself, which tells you the sampling that catches this is real, occasional, and usually happens after the product has been on shelves. Number 4 is what nobody rinses off. And if that one landed, wait until number 1, because that's the one you paid extra for. Number 3, the health claims on the box. At number 3, the wellness language. Detox, cleanse, immunity, metabolism, slim, calm, energy. These words are all over the tea aisle, and they occupy a specific regulatory gray zone. A product can't legally claim to treat or cure a disease without approval. That would make it a drug, so the language slides into terms that sound medical but aren't defined anywhere. Detox is the clearest example. It has no regulatory definition and no clinical meaning as applied to a beverage. Your liver and kidneys perform detoxification continuously, and no tea has been shown to meaningfully improve on that. Some of these products do something though, and it's worth knowing what. A number of slimming or detox teas contain senna, a stimulant laxative. It's an actual pharmacologically active plant. Frequent or prolonged use can cause dependence and electrolyte disruption, which is why laxative products carry warnings about extended use. If a tea is marketed for weight loss and the ingredient list includes senna, cascara, or similar, you're buying a laxative with a wellness label on it. Any short-term change on the scale is water and intestinal contents. Real tea has genuine, well-studied properties, and swapping a sugary drink for it is a straightforwardly good trade. That case is solid enough that it doesn't need the word detox on the front. Number 3 is the vocabulary of medicine without the substance of it. Number 2 is the bag itself, even the paper ones. Even paper bags aren't just paper. At number 2, how a tea bag is held together. Most people picture a tea bag as paper. Paper is fibrous, and fibrous things don't fuse to themselves with heat, so something has to seal the bag shut. For a large share of standard tea bags, that something is a thin plastic component, commonly polypropylene, woven or applied into the material so the edges can be heat sealed during high-speed manufacturing. It's a small amount, far less than the bags we'll get to at number 1, but it's plastic, it's in the bag, and it goes into water at 95 degrees Celsius. This is also why tea bags famously refuse to fully break down in a compost heap. Gardeners have been noticing this for years. The leaves rot away and a ghostly mesh skeleton remains. That skeleton is the plastic. The good news, this is fixable, and some manufacturers have already fixed it. Companies using unbleached plant fiber or genuinely plastic-free heat sealing will typically say so on the box because it's a selling point and they paid for it. If the box says nothing about it, assume there's plastic in the seal. Number 2 is the part of the bag nobody thinks about. Which brings us to number 1, 11.6 billion. At number 1, the premium tea bag. The silky one, the pyramid. You know the ones. They feel like fabric instead of paper. They're translucent, often shaped like a pyramid, and they're marketed as an upgrade. More room for whole leaves to expand, a better brew, a fancier experience. They cost noticeably more. They're made of plastic, usually nylon or polyethylene terephthalate, PET, the same polymer as a water bottle. In 2019, researchers at McGill University tested them properly. They cut open the bags, removed the tea entirely so it couldn't interfere with the analysis, and steeped the empty bags at brewing temperature. Then they counted particles using electron microscopy. A single bag released approximately 11.6 billion microplastic particles and 3.1 billion nanoplastic particles into one cup. The team's own reaction in the coverage at the time was that they'd expected hundreds or thousands. Levels reported in other foods and beverages, bottled water, seafood, salt, honey, beer, had been orders of magnitude lower. By mass, it's small, roughly 16 micrograms per cup. That's a genuinely important caveat, and I'm not going to bury it. But particle count matters separately from mass because of size. Nanoplastics are small enough to behave differently in the body than larger fragments. And in December 2024, researchers at the Autonomous University of Barcelona followed up, finding that particles released from tea bags were taken up by human intestinal cells in laboratory conditions. Here's what I want to be straight about. The health consequences are not established. Nobody has demonstrated that drinking from these bags causes harm. That research doesn't exist yet, and anyone telling you otherwise is ahead of the science. What is established is the exposure. Billions of particles per cup from a product marketed as the premium option to a customer who upgraded specifically because they thought they were getting something better. The cheap paper bag has a little plastic in the seal. The expensive silk one is plastic. That's number 1. You paid more for the worse version, and the packaging never told you what it was made of. Alright, the fix here is the simplest one of any video I've made, and it costs almost nothing. Check what the bag is made of. Start here, because you can do it tonight without buying anything. Go look at the box in your cupboard. Manufacturers who use plastic-free bags say so prominently because it costs them money and they want credit for it. Look for unbleached plant fiber, plastic-free, or a specific material named on the packaging. If the box is silent on the subject, and especially if the bags are the silky, translucent kind, that's your answer. And one immediate adjustment regardless. Pull the bag out earlier. Shorter contact time at high temperature means less of everything transfers, which is a partial mitigation, not a solution. One steel infuser ends the problem. Second, a stainless steel infuser. A basket infuser costs less than a single box of premium tea. It's a mesh cup that sits in your mug or pot, and it lasts essentially forever. With one of these, the bag question disappears entirely. There's no seal, no mesh, no plastic. Steel and leaves and water. Get the basket style rather than the little ball or clamp. The ball design squeeze the leaves into a tight space where they can't expand, which defeats the entire point and gives you a weak, uneven brew. One purchase, permanent solution, loose leaf, and it's cheaper. And at number 1, loose leaf tea, which is where this video turns out to have a genuinely happy ending. Here's the part almost nobody realizes. Loose leaf is usually cheaper per cup than bags. Run the numbers. A box of bags gives you a fixed count at a fixed price. A bag of loose leaf gives you a weight, and a serving is roughly 2 to 3 grams. Divide it out, and loose leaf frequently comes in below the bags, often well below. while delivering a substantially better grade of leaf, and you can steep good loose leaf multiple times. The second infusion of a decent oolong or green tea is often the best one. That's not frugality, it's how the tea is meant to be drunk. Your effective cost per cup drops further. So look at what loose leaf actually solves. Whole leaf instead of dust from number 6. No bag material at all from numbers 1 and 2. You can see exactly what you're buying. Actual leaves, visible fruit pieces or not, which handles number 5, and it costs less. That's the entire list, resolved by removing the packaging. The bag was never a feature of the tea, it was a feature of the factory. A way to portion the cheapest grade of leaf into a fast, shippable, brandable unit. Everything on this list traces back to that one decision. Take the bag away and most of the problem goes with it. And here's what struck me about this one. Tea is genuinely good for you. That part isn't marketing. It's essentially calorie free. It's a better daily drink than almost anything else in the store. And the research on the actual leaf is real. Every single problem in this video came from the packaging and the marketing wrapped around it, not from the plant. So here's your rule. Look at your tea bags tonight. If they're the silky, translucent kind, stop buying those specifically. That's the one clear, evidence-backed change here. Then buy a steel infuser and a bag of loose leaf and compare the price per cup. You'll drink better tea for less money out of a mug with nothing in it but leaves and water. And here's the thing, that same silky mesh material is showing up all over the store now. In the coffee aisle, in the single serve pods, in the little sachets, everything premium comes in these days. One of those is worse than tea. That video is on your screen right now.